I think you guys earned this. I think it's time for my top 10 favorite manga of 2022. This list will be in no particular order, and this list includes mangas that came out years ago. It doesn't necessarily include mangas that just came out this year. It's just the mangas that I read this year that are my favorite. And before we get into the video, just make sure you drop a like, make sure you drop a comment, and make sure you drop a sub because it really does help out a small channel like mine. And let's get into the video now. The first manga I have to say for my favorite manga of 2022 is obviously One Piece. Some might say I'm a One Piece channel, but I'm not. I do make a lot of One Piece content, and One Piece has been a big part of my life, but it really is just because I enjoy the story. I enjoy the Wano arc of this year, how it ended, Luffy against Kaido. Oh, the storytelling was amazing. I really enjoyed the story this year. And honestly, Wano arc might be a top 5 arc for me in One Piece. It's definitely still behind Marineford and a couple other arcs, but this arc is definitely up there. Oda did his thing, and I'm really excited to see where this series goes in the future. But I'm not going to spend too much time talking about One Piece because I think we all saw that coming. So let's move on to the next series, Kaiju number 8. Now, if you watch my channel, you can see that I've been a big supporter of Kaiju number 8 ever since it came out because this manga has star potential. I think it can get in that big 3 realm. I think when the anime does come out, this can be the biggest anime out when it does come out. The story is great, the characters is great, the setting is great, the world building is great. Everything about this manga is perfect for anime and casual viewers, that it can blow up to the levels of Demon Slayers or to the level of One Piece or other anime that are really huge right now. And for the people who don't know too much about Kaiju number 8, it's basically a monster manga where we have a defense force fighting monsters, and the main character can turn into one of these monsters because he got bit by one. And yes, I know it sounds really cliche, but I promise you, him being bit by the monster and hiding it from the defense force doesn't happen for long. They find it out really quickly, and that's not just what the story is. The story evolves into a more worldwide issue with different monsters and how these monsters are evolving, and it really can be something on the levels of Attack on Titan if the writer keeps writing it like he is right now, because he's doing an amazing job. The next up is Kaiji. Now, Kaiji was a manga that I'd never heard about before until a couple manga YouTubers actually started talking about it because it got an English release, and they say it's the best gambling manga you can read. And that got me really intrigued because I was a fan of Kakaguri when I watched it on Netflix. I was like, you know what? Let me read this manga that everybody's saying is really good. Now, this manga is basically about this guy. He kind of gets forced into paying off his debts by gambling. I'm not going to spoil how he got forced into doing it, but it's a really screwed up type situation. And we see this guy, he's on a ship, he's gambling, and you would think that since he's the main character, he's going to win a lot. Because that's the precedent a lot of Shonen Jump manga set, and those are the most popular manga, but it's always that the main character wins no matter what. Naruto, he wins no matter what. Luffy, he wins no matter what. But with this manga, that's not true. It's really realistic with gambling. The main character, he loses, and he loses a lot. It's really interesting. It's still coming out in English. I think right now only the 3rd volume is out, but I think the 5th volume will be out by the end of next year, and I'm excited to read the whole story because I'm not going to read it online. I think it's important to support the smaller company that's printing this book, especially since the story is so good. I highly recommend this manga. This was one of my favorite reads of 2022. Next up is 20th Century Boys by Naoki Urasawa. This book is basically a sci-fi type book. We see this guy taking over the world, and the way he's doing it is by using a plan that the main character made when he was like 10 years old with his group of friends. So he knows that this guy taking over the universe has to be someone from his group of friends. And the plot basically is a save the world type plot, but it gets really intricate, has a lot of twists, and it's really good, a really fun read. I give it like a 9 or 8 out of 10. The only thing is the ending is pretty bad. I'm not gonna lie, it kind of ruins the whole story for me. But if you ignore the ending, almost everything else is perfect. It was one of my favorite reads of this year, and you can't really go wrong with Naoki Urasawa. Some people say he's the best mangaka out there, and I definitely agree. Next up, we have JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 4. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I've never read JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, but I just decided to jump into part 4 as I I don't really care. I'm gonna jump into any part that seems the most fitting for me because I wasn't really interested in the series, and I thought the best way to get myself into this series that so many people love was to just go to a part that sounds the most appealing to me. And since part 4 was like a detective type mystery, I said, yo, that sounds really interesting. I'm gonna start with this part, and I'm glad I did. This manga was a really fun read. You're not gonna have too many deep or sentimental type moments in it, I'm not gonna lie. It's more of just like a showmanship type arc, but I really did enjoy it. I gave it like an 8 out of 10. I really do recommend this. And for anybody who's trying to get into JoJo's and think they need to start with part 1, I don't care what any of the fan base say, just jump into the part that sounds most appealing to you, and you'll most likely be able to get into JoJo's Bizarre Adventure so easily. And next up, we have Monster by Naoki Urasawa again, and this was one of the best reads I've ever had because this is actually my favorite manga of all time. This manga was great from the beginning, the middle, and to the end. The mystery was great. The fact that we know the antagonist from the start, Johan. The fact that we know the relationship between Johan and Dr. Tenma from the start. And now we have to dive into that relationship and figure out all the ins and outs. And figure out why Johan's this evil person. It's very interesting. Urasawa did an amazing job while writing this, and it was hard to put this book down. I think I actually finished this book in like a week, and there was, I think, 10 perfect editions, something like that. If that doesn't tell you how good this book was, I don't know what will. And what's also crazy is that Naoki Urasawa was writing this manga at the same time that he was writing 20th Century Boys, which is crazy because, like you just heard, I had 20th Century Boys on this list as well. He made 2 amazing manga, and this manga is definitely a 10 out of 10. If you like mystery type manga, if you like suspenseful, thriller type manga, something that's gonna keep you on your toes and thinking, you're gonna like this manga. Naoki Urasawa did a great job. I highly recommend this manga. It's my favorite manga of all time. Now next up, we have Mob Psycho 100. And I think we all know Mob Psycho 100 by now by the amazing anime adaptation, but I've actually been reading the manga and I've been keeping up with it. Mob Psycho 100 is actually what got me into manga. It was actually my first volume of manga ever, and ever since then I've been keeping up with the story. I love the story of Mob and how he's like this nobody character, and he's just trying to work to be a better brother, a better person, and try to work on himself to get the girl that he wants and be the person that he wants. And he has these psychic powers, but these powers don't really mean anything in his world, so what can he really do with them? It kind of talks a lot about the question of life, what you do with your life, what you do with your time, and how you value yourself. This story is a really great story. I definitely like it more than One's other work, One Punch Man. Even though One Punch Man is an amazing story, don't get me wrong, I'm just a big fan of Mob Psycho 100 and definitely has a special place in my heart, being my first manga I've ever read. And I definitely give this series like a 9 out of 10 for like a comedic type manga, like that will make you laugh, that will make you have a fun time while reading it. I definitely recommend it, and it definitely is one of my favorite reads of 2022. Next up is Pluto by Naoki Urasawa. And can you tell I was on a Naoki Urasawa binge this year? I really love his storytelling. But Pluto follows the storyline from the original Astro Boy. Actually, it's a remake of the storyline, The Greatest Robot Ever Made, and basically follows the storyline of this detective trying to figure out what's killing all the greatest robots in the universe. And there's a lot of ambitions and motivations that go behind this. I can't really spoil it for you, but I will tell you it's like a government plot line. There's a lot of enshrined connections between random characters in the story. You'll see a lot of different things happen that you didn't expect happening. This story was another masterful storytelling by Naoki Urasawa. I definitely recommend it. It's not my favorite Naoki Urasawa work, but it's definitely up there. It's probably like top 4 for me. Next up, we got Frankenstein by Junji Ito, and this was my first Junji Ito work, and I have to say I really enjoyed this. This was another remake. It was a remake of Frankenstein by, I think her name is Mary Shell. I did not know how dark this story was. First off, Frankenstein isn't the monster, it's actually the guy who created the monster, and once he brings this monster to life, he gets freaked out, he gets horrified, and he kind of abandons his creation. And his creation being abandoned, he feels kind of lonely, and he gets really angry and mad at the world, seeing that he's not a human, he doesn't even know what he is, and a lot of terrible things happens from him questioning his existence. That's the most I can tell you about this storyline, but Junji Ito did an amazing job adapting this. I was kind of questionable about his art style at first, but the more you read it, the more you can easily read through the pages, and you see how great the paneling is and how great the artwork is for his types of stories. It really does feel like you're reading a story that's being told to you. So I would say definitely read this. It's not too strange, it's just a remake of another story. So I think after this story, I'm gonna read something like Uzumaki or Junji Ito's other works to really dive into his storytelling. But if you do want to start here with Junji Ito's works, I definitely recommend it. Frankenstein was a great read, and I really did enjoy it. Next up is Muji Rushi by Naoki Urasawa. Again, he had 4 different spots on this list, but I really did enjoy this manga. I think this is probably my second favorite manga from him, which is crazy because it's a one and done manga. It's in 1 volume, and that's why I do highly recommend this manga, because it's really short. It's only 200 pages and then you're done. But this manga is about an art heist, actually the Louvre. I think it's in France, but I'm not too sure. But it's about an art heist trying to rob a painting, and you see all the crazy stuff that happens, these different con men and how they maneuver their way through this heisting world. He does an amazing job telling this story. I definitely highly recommend it for anybody who's into any heist type movies or heist type action. You will really enjoy this story. It's a great read, it's a fun read, and I definitely give this read at least a 9 out of 10. Definitely nothing below a 9 out of 10. Highly recommend it. You should read it if you haven't. But guys, that was my top 10 favorite manga 2022. And before we end this video, I want you guys to drop a comment on what was your favorite manga of 2022. Or you can even drop a comment on which manga in this video seems to be the most interesting to you. And if you guys want more content from me, I actually made a video right here about Kaiju number 8, explaining my love for the series and why you guys should actually read it as well. And I will catch you guys later. I hope you guys had a great New Year's. Deuces.